The restaurant is bright and quiet. 7 tables are empty. All the light and all the attention are focused on one table by the huge window. At it sits Mrs. Yang and her 3 friends. Yan's birthday. She's turning 55. She's wearing a simple dark blue dress. It's neither glittery nor embellished, but the fabric and perfect cut speak for themselves. On her wrists are thin gold bracelets. Her hair is dazzling white, swept back sleekly. She looks like a queen. Glasses of champagne are already on the table. The friends are laughing and talking loudly. Yan nods and smiles, but her gaze often glides around the room. She glances at her reflection in the window. She sees the waiters bowing respectfully to the manager. She hears the soft clinking of crystal. She feels wonderful. This entire evening has been planned for her. This entire restaurant is working for her alone right now. She is the most important person in this room. She catches the eye of one of her friends and lifts her chin ever so slightly. Yes, today everything will be just the way she wants. She knows it for sure. The kitchen door opens. A waitress approaches their table. "Good evening. My name is Mia. I'll be your waitress today." Mrs. Yoon slowly raises her head and looks at the girl. The girl is young. She looks about 23. She has very light, almost white, straight hair. It is pulled back into a neat ponytail. Her face is calm. Her large brown eyes with long eyelashes look intently. Her lips are full, with a slight sheen. She is wearing the typical restaurant uniform, black pants and a white shirt. But something about her is off. Usually, waiters here are shadows. They are quiet, unnoticeable, almost transparent. This girl is not a shadow. She attracts the eye. Her white hair seems too bright, her calm, too confident. Yeon's smile fades slightly. Her brows draw together slightly. She didn't expect to see such a waitress at her table. She doesn't like it. She's used to everything around her conforming to her expectations. And this girl, Mia, doesn't fit in. Yeon nods silently, indicating that she's heard. A slight irritation is already brewing inside her. Mia arranges heavy crystal water glasses on the table. Her movements are smooth, without fuss. She works silently. Ms. Yeon doesn't take her eyes off her. She studies her every movement. She looks at that white hair, at her face. She wants to somehow express her displeasure. Show who's boss here. Her friend Seok notices this intense gaze. She looks at Yeon questioningly. Yeon catches that look. She decides to act. She turns away from Mia and turns to Seok. She does it deliberately slowly, so that Maya can clearly see. Then Yeon speaks. She speaks loudly and clearly in Korean, so everyone at the table can hear. Her tone is as if she's simply making a comment. "I wonder, Seok, where do they dye their hair so badly?" Yeon says, not looking at Mia. "It's like an old woman's hair, and there's no shine at all. It looks really cheap." She pauses briefly. At that moment, Mia's hand, which had just set down the last glass, freezes for a split second. "That's it," she heard. Ms. Yeon feels a slight sense of satisfaction. Let her know her place. Let her understand that her appearance is disapproved of. Yeon waits for a reaction, waits for the girl to blush, lower her eyes, become fidgety. Mia finishes setting out the glasses. She straightens up. Yeon glances at her quickly, trying to appear indifferent, but Mia's face is expressionless. It's the same polite, professional smile. Her eyes look calmly at Yeon. There's no offense or anger in them, only anticipation. It's as if she didn't understand the insult or ignored it. "Sorry for the wait. Are you ready to order, or do you need more time?" Mia asks. Her voice is even and quiet, without any tremor or tension. That calm voice stung Yeon more than a scream. Her barb hadn't worked. It had fallen on deaf ears. The irritation within Yeon was growing. Who was she to act like this? Why didn't she show that she was uncomfortable? Yeon's face remains cold, but her fingers lightly grip the edge of the menu. She needs to do something different. She needs to put this girl in her place. For real, through her work. "No, we won't wait," Yeon says, her voice sharp. "We'll order now." Yeon opens the menu, but she barely looks at it. She knows what she's going to do. She knows this restaurant. She'll come up with an order that's impossible to get right. She begins to speak, quickly and confidently. "First off, oysters. But not just any oysters, the kind with pomegranate sauce. Make sure the sauce is fresh. Today's. There's no such dish on the menu." Mia nods silently. "Later. Truffle soup. But I want black truffles. Summer ones. And I want them grated right in front of me, right into my bowl. And take the butter out of the broth. I can taste it right away." In the restaurant, the soup is prepared with white truffles and always with butter. For the main course, marbled beef, medium rare, but make sure the center is warm, not cold. Cook for exactly 3 minutes on each side. Over coals, not in a frying pan. This is a very difficult and strange request. The garnish is young asparagus, but only the top 3 centimeters of each stalk, exactly 5 of those pieces, and béarnaise sauce. But without the tarragon, I don't like that herb, she continues. She talks about dessert, about wine, adding more and more strange details. She's deliberately confusing the order. Her friends glance from her to Mia. They understand what's going on. Jan tests the waitress. She waits for her to get confused, to ask again, to ask for it to be repeated. This will be her small victory. Finally, Jan finishes. She leans back in her chair. She looks at Mia with cold defiance. "Have you remembered everything?" she asks, knowing that Mia doesn't have a notepad or pen in her hands. Mia stands straight. Her arms hang calmly at her sides. She doesn't look confused. She doesn't even blink. "Of course," she says in her even voice. "Let me repeat your order to make sure." She pauses briefly, closes her eyes for a second, then opens them and begins to speak. She speaks clearly and slowly. She lists every dish, every odd request, every detail. Oysters with pomegranate sauce, fresh. Black truffle soup, grated in front of you. Broth without butter. Beef, 3 minutes on the side over the coals, warm in the middle. 5 3-centimeter pieces of asparagus. Béarnaise sauce without tarragon. She doesn't falter. She doesn't get confused. She even names things that aren't on the menu. She repeats everything word for word, as if she recorded it on a tape recorder. When she finishes, silence reigns at the table. The friends exchange surprised glances. They didn't expect this. Such a memory. Jan's face goes still. Her confident smile disappears. Instead of malice, something else appears in her eyes. Cold surprise. Mild shock. Her plan failed. The girl wasn't wrong. She didn't ask again. She remembered everything perfectly. The first open challenge. And Jan lost. Mia looks at her with the same calm smile. "Is everything correct?" she asks. Jan can't answer right away. She simply nods, unable to utter a word. She's lost this round. But the game has only just begun. And now her gaze at Mia burns with more than just irritation. It burns with a bright, sharp curiosity and intense hostility. "Who are you?" she thinks, looking at the waitress's calm face. The silence at the table lasts for a few seconds. Jan feels heat spread across her cheeks. She's lost. In front of her friends, her authority, her control over the situation, has cracked, all because of this girl. She sees her friends exchange glances. They don't say anything out loud, but in their gazes, Jan reads a hint of surprise, perhaps even respect for the waitress's memory. It's unbearable. She, Mrs. Jan, should be the center of attention, the source of admiration, and now they're admiring someone else. "Well then," Jan says finally, her voice dry, "that's all correct. You can pass the order on to the kitchen. And hurry up, we're waiting." She turns away from Mia and pretends to stare out the window. Her fingers drum nervously on the tablecloth. Inside, everything is seething. She's not used to this. Her word is law. Her opinion is truth. And this Mia simply ignored her hair-splitting outburst and did her job flawlessly. It feels like a challenge. Quiet, but very clear. A few minutes later, Mia returns, carrying a basket of warm bread and small plates of olive oil. She moves smoothly and quietly again, placing the basket precisely in the center of the table. As she bends down to set out the plates, the light falls on her face, her white hair, her large eyes with thick eyelashes, the light gloss on her lips. Jan can't take it anymore. Her irritation is looking for an outlet. She looks straight at Mia and speaks loudly, addressing her friends, but clearly for everyone to hear. "You know, I've always believed that good establishments should have a dress code, including for appearance, especially for the wait staff," she begins. "Such flashy looks. That makeup. It's distracting. It's inappropriate. You're supposed to be working here, not showing off. Customers came to eat, not to look at your eyelashes." She breaks off a piece of bread without looking at him. Her words hang in the air, heavy and venomous. This is no longer a subtle hint. This is a direct, crude mockery. Jan is challenging him openly. She expects Mia to break, to cry, to blush. At least something. Mia finishes setting out the plates. She slowly straightens up. She looks straight at Mrs. Jan, and in her large brown eyes, which a second ago were calm, there is a flash. Bright, quick, like lightning. It is not fear, not resentment. It is something hard, sharp, like a blade. This look lasts less than a second, but Jan manages to see it, and for a moment, a chill runs through her. There was strength in those eyes, confidence, danger. But then the flash fades. Mia's eyelids droop slightly, hiding her expression. She's just a waitress again. I apologize if my appearance is unacceptable, Mia says. Her voice remains even, polite, even quiet. I follow the restaurant's rules. She says nothing more. She bows slightly and turns to leave. Her back is straight. Her shoulders are squared. She leaves as calmly as she arrived. She makes no excuses. She doesn't snap. She simply leaves, leaving her poisonous words hanging in the air. And this departure, this silence, is stronger than any rude response. Mia leaves doesn't last long. One of her friends, Suk, giggles. Oh, Jan, you're as ruthless as ever, she says, raising her glass. But you're right. These days, all these young people think about is showing off. Another friend, Mina, chimed in. Yes, I agree. You need to work on your lashes, not just paint them. Although I admit she already has long lashes. They're probably extensions. There's nothing natural left now. The third friend simply shakes her head with an air of understanding. The table comes alive again. The friends start laughing. They discuss Mia. They talk about her manners, her appearance, her impudence. They support Jan. They reassure her. Their laughter is loud and a little false. They want to show Jan that they are on her side, that her authority is unshakable. Jan listens to them and sips champagne. Satisfaction slowly returns. Yes, she's right. Everyone supports her. This girl is just an ill-mannered upstart. Jan feels like a queen at her table again. She smiles and nods to her friends. They don't see what's going on around them. They don't notice the young bartender behind the counter, who has stopped washing a glass and is staring intently at their table. They don't see the stern manager standing in the far corner of the room, watching everything without a trace of emotion. They are being watched, but they are too absorbed in themselves to notice. The kitchen is bustling with activity. But in the corner, near the door to the dining room, several waiters and a cook's assistant have gathered. Have you heard? He's watering ours again. Me you, whispers the young waiter. I already told you about the makeup. What a completely insolent old woman. Keep quiet, the older girl hisses at him. She's an important client. She has connections. You could be out of work in a heartbeat. But that's so unfair, the boy persists. Mia hasn't done anything wrong. She's the best of us. She does her job perfectly. Why isn't she saying anything? I wouldn't tolerate it. At that moment, the door opened slightly and Mia entered. She was holding a tray of snacks. She heard the last words. Thank you, David, she says quietly to the boy. But don't, please. She approaches them. Her face is serious. Don't interfere. This is important. Just do your job as usual. And don't talk about me to the other guests. Not a word. Promise? She looks at them in turn. There's a request in her gaze, but also firmness. It's a command. The boy frowns but nods. The girl sighs. Okay, Mia, whatever you say. But take care. It's okay, Mia says, a hint of a smile playing on her lips. It'll all clear up soon. She adjusts the tray and re-enters the hall. The others exchange glances. There was a mystery in her words. Intrigue. Why was she asking not to defend her? What was she planning? But there was no time to ask. They dispersed to their places, casting anxious glances at the door to the hall. Mia begins serving appetizers. She does so silently. She places each plate in front of the guest with such precision, as if measuring the distance with a ruler. She describes the dishes in a quiet, clear voice. What's in them, how they're prepared. Then the soups arrive. She arranges them with the same grace. The spoons are at the perfect angle. The napkins are neatly adjusted. Jan's friends notice it. They're used to good service. But the way Mia moves is above the ordinary. There's no fuss in her movements. There's confidence and a quiet strength. She doesn't serve the food. She presents it like a precious gift. Suk even remarks out loud, she's certainly strange, but her service is impeccable. It's obvious she's trained. Jan's ears, and her rage, which she had barely contained, bursts out. Flawless? This upstart? No. This is just a show. This is an attempt to look better. Jan watches Mia effortlessly handle the heavy tray, the way she smiles, artificially of course, at the other guests. Every flawless detail of her service is another blow to Jan's pride. She expected to see her humiliated, confused. Instead, she sees a professional being praised. Grace, she mutters under her breath, pushing away her bowl of soup. Everyone has their role. Her role is to be a servant, and she acts like a mistress. She barely touches food. Her anger ruins her appetite. When Mia comes to clear away the soup bowls, Jan suddenly raises his hand. We'll be ordering wine with the main course. Call the sommelier, not the young one, but the older one. Do you understand? Mia simply nods. Right away, mistress. A minute later, a man of about 50 in a formal suit approaches the table. This is the restaurant's sommelier. He bows slightly. How can I help you? Yang picks up the wine list, pretends to study it, then puts it aside. You know my taste. I want a white wine, not too dry, with aromas of peach and almond, and something that goes well with asparagus and beef. What do you recommend? The sommelier begins speaking. He suggests a variety and describes it. Yang nods, but then abruptly interrupts him and turns to Mia, who stands a little distance away, awaiting further instructions. What do you think? Asks Yon, a barely concealed sneer lacing her voice. You know and remember everything so well. Give us some advice. Which wine should we choose? She looks at Mia defiantly. The sommelier is an expert. His job is to know wine. And Mia is just a waitress. Yang is deliberately putting her in an awkward position. Let her try to show off her knowledge here in front of a professional. Let her get into trouble. Let her finally make a mistake. All eyes at the table turn to Mia. The sommelier looks at her with slight bewilderment. Yang smiles, anticipating victory. Mia stands, maintaining a calm posture. She doesn't blink under the intense gaze of Yon and the sommelier. Her face doesn't express confusion. She merely tilts her head slightly, as if considering the question. For the pairing you described, Mia begins in her even, confident voice. A wine from the Moselle Valley would be perfect. A Riesling, but not a late harvest. A Cabint. It has the right light sweetness and aromas of ripe peach. The almond notes will emerge if you let the wine breathe in the glass a bit. She pauses briefly, her gaze shifting to the sommelier. I imagine you were about to suggest something similar? The sommelier, who had been looking at her with slight condescension a second ago, now raised his eyebrows slightly. He nods slowly. Absolutely, he says, and there's a hint of respect in his voice. I was just about to recommend the Cabinet Riesling from the Johannesburg estate. It's perfect. Mia looks at Yon again. This wine would really complement your main course perfectly. Can I bring it over for a tasting? Yon sits frozen. Her plan backfired. She'd intended to humiliate Mia, but she demonstrated knowledge that impressed even the sommelier. The friends exchanged glances. Their views of Mia shifted. Now they reflected not only judgment, but also outright curiosity, even grudging admiration. How does she know that? One of them quietly asks the other. Yon hears the whisper, and it makes her clench her fists under the table. Another failure. Yon feels rage rising in her throat. She's losing this silent war on all fronts. Her order didn't faze Mia. Her taunts were dashed against her stony calm. Now even her wine test has become a demonstration of this girl's power. The sommelier leaves to fetch a bottle. Mia turns to adjust something on the serving table nearby. Without thinking, driven by pure anger and a desire to hurt, Jan speaks. Her voice is loud, piercing, drowning out the quiet music. Tell me, Mia, she begins, her every word laced with venom. Are you probably dreaming of meeting some rich client through this serving table? Finding a husband? Building a life? After all, you have nothing more to offer than a good look and memorized phrases about wine. Is that your plan? The words fall into the ensuing silence. Even her friends freeze. This is too much. This is downright cruel and rude. They look at Jan with mild shock, but don't dare stop her. A young waitress, the same one who had been whispering in the kitchen earlier, slips out from behind a column. Her face is flushed with indignation. She can't keep quiet. I'm sorry, but that's not true, she blurts out, her voice shaking with emotion. Mia is the best of us. She's not. But she doesn't have time to finish. Mia takes a quick step and finds herself next to the girl. She doesn't grab her hand, but simply places her palm gently, but very firmly, on her forearm. The movement is simultaneously calming and stopping. Mia says quietly, but loud enough for everyone to hear, "Thank you, but no need. Please go back to the kitchen and check our order." There's no reproach in her eyes, only a calm plea and determination. The waitress, Lena, looks at her, then at Yang's angry face. She turns pale, nods, and, with one last angry glance at the table, quickly leaves. Mia turns back to the table. Her face becomes professionally neutral once more. But the tension in the air after this scene hangs like a thick fog. Everyone waits for Mia to respond to Yeon's direct and insulting question. What will she say? Will she make excuses? Leave in tears? Will she finally break down? But Mia does neither. She seems completely unaffected by the rudeness. Instead, she looks directly at Ms. Yeon. Her gaze becomes penetrating, searching. Ms. Yeon, she says, her voice not loud but unusually clear. Do you often judge people without knowing their whole story? The question hangs in the air. It sounds strange, not like a response to a joke, but like a separate deep thought out loud. Yeon blinks. She's prepared for anything, but not such a philosophical question from a waitress. She tries to find a caustic retort, but the words fail her. Mia's question hits the nail on the head. After all, Yeon was just judging. Judging by appearance, by work, building entire theories about other people's lives. What do you mean? Yeon finally squeezes out, her voice losing its former confidence. Mia says softly, her eyes briefly flickering with something unreadable. I think the sommelier is bringing your wine. I'll let him do his job. And with that, she steps back, allowing the sommelier to approach with an open bottle and glasses. She doesn't wait for an answer. She lets her question hang in the silence like a death sentence, causing Yeon and her friends to feel a sudden, inexplicable discomfort. Who is this girl asking such questions? Mia's question is oppressive. Even Yeon's friends hesitate to break it. They drink wine but avoid eye contact. The question, how often do you judge people without knowing the whole story, hangs in the air like a reproach. It makes them feel uneasy. Yeon can't stand it. Humiliation, anger, a complete loss of control. It's all seething inside her. She feels like the entire restaurant, every waiter, every guest, is looking at her and laughing. And it's all Mia's fault. This girl ruined her entire evening, made her look stupid and angry in front of her friends. She can't sit back and take it anymore. She needs action. She needs an immediate victory that will restore order. She abruptly grabs her expensive purse, lying on an empty chair nearby. Her movements are jerky, angry. She finds her phone. Her fingers tremble with rage as she finds the contact. She holds the phone to her ear, looking straight ahead, not seeing anyone. Her friends look at her in surprise. Jean! She practically screams into the phone as soon as she hears the dial tone. It's Mom! You have to come immediately, right now. To the Lotus restaurant. Do you hear me? Right now! She pauses, listening to something on the other end. Her face contorts even more. What's going on? It's chaos, she hisses, trying to keep her voice quiet, but failing. There's this waitress. She's completely out of control. She's insulting me. She's ruining my party. You have to come and sort this out. Show her her place. You're my son. You have to protect me. She's almost sobbing with anger and resentment. She demands her son drop everything and come save her from this horrible girl. She wants him to see this mess with his own eyes. She wants him to come and, with his power, his authority, restore order, fire this Mia on the spot, humiliate her in a way Yeon herself couldn't. There's a slight pause on the line. Yeon waits for an answer. She expects her son to explode, ask for details, promise to sort everything out immediately. Jin is her pride and joy. A smart, influential young man. He always solved her problems. But the voice that comes in response makes Yeon freeze for a moment. He is absolutely calm, even, without a single note of excitement or anger. Mom, Jean says, his voice low and measured. I'm on my way. Yeon blinks. What? You're already on your way? But I just called. I know, he interrupts, but his tone isn't rude, just stating. I'm almost there. I'll be there in 5 minutes. Don't worry. But how did you know? Yeon asks, perplexed. Her anger briefly gives way to confusion. It's okay, Mom, Jin repeats, not answering her question. His voice sounds strange. It doesn't have the usual warmth when he talks to her. There's something metallic hardness to it, and something else, something that sends a slight chill down Yeon's spine. Stay where you are. Don't do anything. I'll handle it. See you later. There was a short beep. Jin hung up. Yeon slowly lowers her phone. She looks at him, then at her friends, who are watching her closely. He was already on his way. He said he'd be here in 5 minutes, she says, her voice uncertain. Oh, how wonderful! One of her friends immediately perks up. Jean will sort everything out. He's so determined. But Yeon doesn't feel relieved. She feels uneasy. How did he know? Why was he on his way here already? His calm, cold voice didn't promise a simple resolution to the argument with the waitress. There was something serious about it. Very serious. Exactly 5 minutes pass. Yeon glances nervously at the front door, barely touching her main course, which has already been served. Her friends also look nervous. They chat quietly among themselves, glancing at Mia, who stands at the serving table, completely calm. Suddenly, the heavy entrance door opens smoothly. A young man enters the hall. He's wearing an impeccable light suit, perfectly tailored to his athletic, toned frame. His shirt is snow white. His shoes are also light, matte, without a speck of dust. His hair is short, and also very light, almost white, like his mother's, but his skin is porcelain white, untanned, and his eyes, bright, cold blue eyes, like ice. They immediately scan the room with a quick, appraising glance. His face, with its defined cheekbones and sharp jawline, seems simultaneously handsome and very stern. He moves confidently, without fuss, but his every step speaks of strength and complete control. And then something strange happens. The restaurant manager, who had been standing at the counter, freezes and straightens up as if on a string. The head waiter at the entrance freezes with a tray in his hands. The bartender abruptly stops what he's doing and looks only at the newcomer. Even the elderly, the sommelier, who had been adjusting wine glasses in the far corner, stops and bows almost imperceptibly. The entire staff freezes for a second. A silence hangs in the air, full of respect, and a hint of fear. This isn't a typical reaction to an important guest. This is something else entirely. This is a complete, unconditional recognition of authority. Yeon sees her son and immediately waves at him, trying to smile. "Jin! Son, come here!" she calls. But Jin doesn't look at her. His icy blue eyes sweep across the room and stop, not at his mother's table. He looks straight at Mia, and at that very moment, something changed on his face. The hard lines around his mouth softened. His gaze, cold and appraising, became warm, focused solely on her. He confidently walks straight towards her. Yeon's hand, waving to her son, slowly drops. The smile freezes on her face, then begins to melt like ice in the sun. Her eyes, full of anticipation and malice, widen in bewilderment. Jin passes by her table. He doesn't even turn his head in her direction. It's as if he didn't notice her. His gaze is fixed on one spot in the room. Yeon instinctively turns his head, following the direction of his gaze, and sees who he's focused on. On Mia. On the waitress. The son looks at this impudent, brazen girl, whom Yeon had just demanded be punished, and there's no anger or irritation in his gaze. None of the indignation with which he should have looked at his mother's offender. In his cold blue eyes, Yeon sees something entirely different. She sees attention, concentration, and something else that makes her insides go cold. Something soft, completely at odds with his stern face and commanding gait. "Jin?" she whispers, but he has already passed by. He walks straight towards Mia, with firm, confident steps. Every sound in the room fades away. Even the soft clink of dishes from the kitchen vanishes. The piano music playing from the speakers seems to fade away of its own accord. Everyone freezes. The waiters, who had previously tried to pretend they weren't noticing the commotion, now couldn't take their eyes off the guests. The bartender stopped wiping his glass. The manager stood motionless at the counter, his face a stony mask, but his eyes were watching the proceedings intently. Yeon's friends sit with their mouths open. Their forks are frozen in mid-air. They look at Jin, then at Mia, then at the pale Yeon. Jin pays no attention to anyone. For him, there's only one person in this room right now. He approaches Mia. She doesn't move away, doesn't take a step toward him. She simply stands by the serving table, straight and calm, as she has all this time. Her arms rest calmly by her sides. But now there's nothing of the servant in her posture. There's dignity in her calm. Shock washes over Yeon's table like a wave. She doesn't understand. Her brain refuses to process the image. Her son, the pride of the family, the heir, is coming not to her, but to this servant? Why? To reprimand him? But his posture, his gaze, it doesn't look like a reprimand. Jin stops next to Mia. He doesn't extend his arm to hug her. He doesn't take her hand. He stands very close, slightly, with his left shoulder forward, as if between her and the rest of the room, and especially between her and his mother's table. His back is straight. His shoulders are back. This isn't an attacker's stance. It's a shield. He stands as if he's shielding her from the world. He tilts his head slightly toward her. His voice is quiet when he speaks, but the complete silence in the room allows his words to reach everyone. Is everything okay? He asks. Just 3 words, but they are filled with so much care, so much attention, so much closeness that it takes Jan's breath away. Mia looks up at him slightly, and for the first time all evening, her face changes, just slightly. The corners of her lips lift in the slightest, almost invisible smile. She nods, almost imperceptibly. Everything's fine, she replies just as quietly. I managed. This short conversation, this glance they exchanged, says more than any words. There is a connection between them, a very deep and very personal connection. They understand each other without words, and now they stand together as a team. Jan sees it. She sees how her son looks at this girl. She sees how Mia returns his gaze, and that gaze is full of tenderness and complete trust. All her insults, all her mockery were dashed not by the waitress's stony face, but by this silent connection, now visible to everyone. The silence is finally broken by Ms. Yon's voice. It sounds sharp, piercing, full of shock and growing panic. Jin! She jumps up from her seat. The chair slides back with a crash. Her face is distorted with a mixture of incomprehension and horror. She points a finger at Mia. Her finger trembles. What does this mean? What kind of performance is this? Do you know this? This girl! She almost said another word, but even in her state of shock, she was careful not to utter it. Although it was present in her tone, in her gesture, all eyes in the room are now on Jin. How will he respond? Jin slowly, very slowly, turns to face his mother. His movements are filled with a calm, cold confidence. When his face is fully revealed to his mother, there is no trace of the softness it had had a second ago when he looked at Mia. His blue eyes turn icy. The line of his mouth is firm. He looks at his mother not as a loved one, but as someone who has made a grave mistake. Jin looks directly at his mother. His voice, when he speaks, is quiet but perfectly clear. Each word falls like a stone into the silence of the room. Mom, he says, and there's no warmth or respect in the image. There's only cold formality. Meet Mia. He pauses briefly. It's long enough for Jan to feel the ground slipping out from under her feet. Then he finishes the sentence. Simple and clear. My bride. 3 words. My bride. They hang in the air. At first, it seems like no one understood them. Like it's some kind of joke, a very strange and inappropriate one. Jan's face turns completely white, paler than her own white hair. Her lips move silently. She tries to speak, but no sound comes out. She simply stares at her son with huge, terrified eyes. The friends sit like statues. One of them covered her mouth with her hand. Silence falls. But it's not just the absence of sound. It's a grotesque, oppressive, unreal silence. It seems even the air has stopped moving. Jan and her friend's table now looks like a scene from a bad play. It's a picture of complete and utter shock. The friends' faces are stunned. They look from Jin to the white as a sheet Jan, then to Mia, who stands next to Jin, calm and unapproachable. Their minds refuse to connect the dots. The haughty Mrs. Jan, her powerful son, and the waitress they just humiliated. These 3 concepts don't add up. This is terrifying. One of the friends, the one sitting closest to Jan, makes an awkward movement. Her hand, which she had been involuntarily clutching a fork, loosens. The fork clinks onto a crystal plate. The clink seems impossibly loud in this silence. It echoes throughout the room, but no one flinches. No one turns around at the sound. Everyone looks only at them. Jan stands, leaning her hands on the table. Her legs are wobbly. She heard her son's words. She understood them, but their meaning doesn't penetrate her consciousness. Bride. The word swirls around in her head, unable to find a way out. This girl, this waitress, who served them bread, who endured her ridicule? Her son's bride? Her Jin's? The heirs? This is impossible. This is a nightmare. She has to wake up. But she doesn't wake up. She sees Jin turn back to Mia. She sees his hand finally rise and gently, almost tenderly, touch Mia's elbow. A protective, reassuring gesture. And this simple gesture finishes her off. It's true. All of it is true. Her entire world, all her arrogance, all her confidence in her superiority, collapsed in an instant, and collapsed in the most humiliating, most terrifying way for her. She insulted her own son's future wife, publicly, furiously, and now everyone can see it. Jin takes his time. He gives his mother and everyone present time to absorb his words. He stands next to Mia, his posture still one of protection and absolute solidarity. His icy gaze glides over his mother's face, then over the shocked faces of her friends. He understands that he needs to explain, not for them, but to clear up any potential questions. His voice is even and businesslike, as if he's holding a meeting. Mia's been working here for a month, he begins, addressing his mother first. But in reality, his words reach the entire frozen room. But not as a regular waitress. She's here incognito. This was her decision, and my approval. He pauses, letting the words sink into Yeon's mind. She studied our business, not from my office or from reports. She wanted to see everything with her own eyes, from the ground up, to learn how everything really works, how people interact, how they communicate with clients. She wanted to understand the foundation on which everything we own is built. Jin turns slightly toward Mia, and approval, even pride, flashes in his gaze for a moment. She wanted to earn respect by learning everything from the start, so that when the time came, no one could say she didn't understand anything or got it all for nothing. This explanation crashes over Yeon like a new wave, so this wasn't a chance meeting. This wasn't her son's stupid mistake. This was a well-thought-out plan. And this girl, she'd been pretending to be a maid for a month, and all of them, including Yeon herself, had become part of some strange test. Yeon's brain refuses to accept this reality. Instead of understanding, a new wild thought enters. This can't be true. The son has been fooled. He's been duped. No! She cries hoarsely, her voice breaking. It's a lie! It's a trap! Jin, come to your senses! She points her finger at Mia again, her finger shaking not from shock but from rage now. She's a swindler! Do you understand? She got here on purpose. She found out about you, and now she's playing this fool so you'll notice her. She wants money. She wants power. She's deceiving you. The words fly out of her like a machine gun, incoherent, full of hatred and panic. She doesn't see how Jin's face grows colder and colder. She doesn't notice how her friends try to move away from her, embarrassed and frightened. "Mom, shut up," Jin says, and for the first time there's steel in his quiet voice. A warning, but Yeon doesn't hear. Her fear of losing her son, her wounded pride, her rage at the humiliation, all of it merges into one hysterical torrent. She's got you hooked! Look at her! Who is she? A nobody! Her place is in the kitchen washing dishes, not next to you. You need to fire her, now! And fire everyone who allowed this to happen. She's screaming almost hysterically, oblivious to the fact that her cries are echoing throughout the quiet room. For her, the world has narrowed to this injustice, this deception into which she's certain her son has fallen. And then Mia raises her voice. She doesn't yell. She doesn't raise her voice. She simply starts talking. And her quiet, confident, absolutely calm voice suddenly drowns out Yeon's hysteria, not with volume, but with the force of her confidence. "Ms. Yeon," Mia says, and all eyes instantly turn to her. "Last Thursday, your downtown jewelry store's turnover was $74,500. The bulk of the profit came from the sale of the emerald necklace by Master Lee, but the highest margin was on the Japanese pearls you purchased through the Hong Kong supplier Chen & Company at an 18% discount." She pauses briefly, almost imperceptibly. Yeon freezes, her mouth open, her eyes widening. How does she know this? These are internal numbers, details. "Your logistics warehouse on the outskirts of the city," Mia continues in the same even tone, "reduced storage costs by 12% last month by switching 3 product categories to a dynamic allocation system. However, there was a delay in shipping a batch of watches to Busan because Manager Choi neglected to check the export declarations. The problem was resolved through your contacts at the Port Authority." She talks about things that only a small circle of managers knows: turnover, margins, names of suppliers, internal problems. She doesn't just quote numbers. She analyzes. She knows the family business from the inside, as if it were her own. "You're worried about the new competitor across the street," Mia continues, looking straight into Yeon's whitened eyes. "But their weakness isn't the kitchen, it's personnel management. They have a 40% turnover rate among waiters every month. You could poach their best chef. His contract expires in a week. His name is Kim Tae-sung. His weakness is gambling debts at the underground club Vesper, which is controlled by your people." The silence after her words becomes deafening. Now it's not just Yeon and her friends who are shocked. Even the waiters and the manager are shocked. This girl, who had been serving them food and enduring their ridicule for a month, had just demonstrated a depth of knowledge about the family's complex, semi-legal business that only the most trusted of confidants could possess. A family member, a partner. Mia stands with her head slightly bowed. She proved her point without shouting, without hysteria, simply with facts. She knows everything, and now everyone knows it. The anger that had been boiling inside Jin while his mother was screaming at Mia for being a liar reaches its limit. He can't take it anymore. He turns sharply toward his mother, his movement impetuous, full of hidden power. When he turns his head, the collar of his immaculate light-colored shirt moves slightly, and everyone sees what is usually hidden. On the pale skin of his neck, just below his hairline, a tattoo is clearly visible. It's small, but no less striking. It's a black scorpion. It's depicted in an aggressive pose with its stinger raised. Each line is crisp and vibrant, as if the insect is about to come to life and sting. It's not just a drawing. It's a sign, a symbol. In their circles, everyone knows what it means. The scorpion is the unspoken emblem of their family, but only one person has the right to wear it prominently around their neck, the one who holds all the strings in his hands, the one whose word is law, the boss. Jin never flaunted it. In polite company, at gatherings with his mother and her friends, he always looked like a successful young businessman. But now, in a fit of anger, defending Mia, he forgot all about caution. Or perhaps he deliberately revealed his true nature. Yeon's friends instinctively recoil when they see the tattoo. They've heard rumors, but seeing proof is something else entirely. Their fear of Jin, who until now had simply been their friend's son, suddenly becomes tangible, physical. This is a man from another world, a world of strict rules and absolute power. Even Yeon pauses for a moment, seeing the familiar symbol on her son's neck from childhood. She knows he's taken over his father's business, but seeing that mark on him, seeing him like this, cold, angry, unyielding, is terrifying. It's a reminder of who truly holds power in the family now. And it's not her. Jin catches that look of horror. He doesn't adjust his collar. Let them see. Let them know who they just tried to go up against. He looks at his mother, and his blue eyes burn with an icy fire. "Now do you see?" he says, his voice low and dangerous. "Now do you understand who you were trying to humiliate today?" Yeon's cheeks burned. Her entire royal evening, all her self-confidence, had crumbled in an instant. She stood before her son, yet she felt as if she'd been cornered, like a misbehaving child. The scorpion tattoo on his neck seemed to burn her eyes. This wasn't her little son. This was the man who commanded an entire world she'd only guessed at, and she'd just insulted the woman he'd chosen. She tries to say something. She opens her mouth. At first, only a ragged sigh comes out. "Jean, I didn't know," she babbles. But these words sound empty and pathetic. "I didn't know" is no excuse. She didn't want to know. She saw only what she wanted to see. A waitress who could be humiliated. She tries to justify herself in a different way. But why? Why didn't she say anything? Why didn't she say anything? I would've. She falls silent. Because she knows that even if Mia told her, she wouldn't believe her. She'd call her a liar, just like she did a second ago. Her friends are looking at their plates, at their hands, anywhere but at her. Their embarrassment is plain to see. They are witnesses to her complete collapse. They are embarrassed. They want to disappear into the ground. Yeon seeks support in their eyes, but finds none. She's left alone. She stands before her son's cold gaze and Mia's calm, now understanding one. Her kingdom has crumbled to dust, and she, with her own hands, destroyed it. Jin takes his time. He lets his mother fully feel the depth of her fall. He looks at her not with hatred, but with cold disappointment. That's what hurts most. When he begins to speak, his voice is quiet. But in the deathly silence of the hall, each word resounds like the blow of a hammer. "Today, Mom, you made a huge mistake, but not in being abrupt, not in demanding good service." He pauses to make sure she's listening. "You didn't insult the waitress. You publicly humiliated and insulted my future wife, the future mistress of our family. You tried to trample the dignity of the person who would enter our home, and you did it with pleasure, in front of your friends, to enhance your status by humiliating her." His words cut like blades. They strip the situation of all its artificial gloss, leaving only the naked, unpleasant truth. Yeon can't deny it. That's exactly what she did. You've forgotten the most important rule, the one that holds everything we have together. Respect. Not just fear. Respect for people, regardless of their status. Because you never know who's standing in front of you. Today, you saw that firsthand. And that's unforgivable. He pronounces the last word clearly and distinctly. Unforgivable. It's not an emotion. It's a judgment. He places her behavior outside the bounds of what's acceptable in their family. In his family, Jin looks at his mother, who seems to have shrunk. Her proud posture is broken, but the lesson must be fully learned. A simple scolding is not enough. Action is required. You have a choice now, he says. His voice grows even quieter, but that makes every word even more weighty. You can fix just a small part of what you've done. Or you can destroy everything completely. He glances at Mia, who stands nearby, silent and dignified. First choice. You invite Mia to sit at this table right now in front of everyone, and you apologize to her. Not excuses. Not, if only I had known. A sincere apology for every harsh word, for every taunt. You admit you were wrong. Unconditionally. Yun looks at him, her eyes full of horror. In front of everyone? In front of her friends? In front of this girl? Apologize like a servant? Second choice, Jean continues, not waiting for her reaction. You pick up your purse, you stand up, and you leave. Alone. The party is over for you. You leave not as a hostess, but as someone no longer welcome here. And from this moment on, our doors will be closed to you until you make your first choice. But then you won't be apologizing here, but within the walls of our home. And that will be much harder. He confronts her with a fait accompli. Either humiliation now, but with a chance to improve, or complete exile with the loss of face and status. Both are bitter, but one offers a chance. The other does not. Yan stands there, paralyzed. Her mind races. Leave? That would be admitting defeat once and for all. That would mean her friends would spread this story throughout their circle. She would become a laughingstock, the one whose son kicked her out because of the waitress. Stay and apologize? That's humiliation too. But it stays here, in this room. It shows that she's capable of admitting a mistake, that she respects her son's choice. In their world, sometimes it's not about avoiding a fall, but about rising up correctly. She looks at Jin. There's no pity in his eyes, only anticipation of a decision. He's not joking. He's given her a choice, and he's going to follow through. Slowly, as if against her will, she turns her gaze to Mia. Mia looks at her. There's no malice or triumph in her large eyes now. There's only a calm, assessing attentiveness, as if she's watching an important exam that Yan must pass. Yan takes a step forward. Her legs are weak. She opens her mouth. At first, her voice doesn't obey her, coming out as a hoarse whisper. She coughs, trying to clear her throat. I want to apologize. She sees her friends freeze in disbelief. Proud and unyielding, Yan apologizes. She addresses Mia directly. It's unbearably painful to look her in the eyes, but she forces herself to. Mia, she says the name for the first time, and it burns her tongue. I'm sorry. For tonight, for my words. They were terrible. I didn't know who you were. But that's no excuse. I was rude and unfair. I insulted you. And I'm sorry. She exhales. These words have ripped all the strength out of her. She feels empty, crushed. Her royal evening, her birthday, ended here, in this place with these words. She is no longer a queen. She is simply a woman who has publicly humiliated herself. Jin watches this, motionless. He nods when his mother finishes. He nods once. That's enough. The apology is accepted, but not forgotten. He turns to Mia. His face softens. He extends his hand to her, not to lead her, but to offer his support. Mia looks at his palm, then places hers in his. Their fingers interlock. It's a simple gesture, but there's so much intimacy and understanding in it that it's painful to watch. Let's go, Jean says quietly to her. There's nothing else for us to do here. He doesn't look at his mother. He doesn't say goodbye to his friends. He simply turns and walks toward the exit, holding Mia's hand. She walks next to him, her back straight, her stride confident. They walk past the stunned manager, past the frozen waiters, who follow them with looks full of shock and a new, timid respect for Mia. They leave the room without looking back for a second. The door closes behind them. Mrs. Yun remains at the table. She slowly sinks into a chair. Her hands are shaking. She can't look at her friends. She stares at the empty space where her son and that girl had just stood. Her whole world has collapsed. She's lost face. She's lost control. And worst of all, she seems to have lost her son's respect and trust, and all because of her own stupidity and arrogance. The silence at the table is oppressive. No one knows what to say. And in the doorway, at the last moment before disappearing from view, Mia turned around. She cast a single glance back into the hall, at the hunched figure of Mrs. Yon. That look was completely different from the one she'd had all evening. There was no stony calm or polite smile in it. Her expressive brown eyes now burned with a hard, cold, merciless fire. The fire of someone who had endured a trial and emerged victorious. The fire of a hostess who had just defined new boundaries. She showed that she can be as quiet as a mouse, lower than a grass, but crossing her path is dangerous. Very dangerous. The door closed finally, but history, real history, was only just beginning for the three of them, and the rules would now be dictated by other people. After Jin and Mia left, a deathly silence fell over the room. It was so thick that even the soft clinking of crystal when someone carelessly touched a glass was drowned out. Mrs. Yon sat staring into space. Her flawless makeup was powerless to conceal the gray, sallow complexion. She looked not 55, but 70. Her friends were silent. They exchanged furtive glances, unsure what to do. Continuing the celebration was impossible. To offer words of comfort would be to acknowledge the catastrophe that had just occurred, and they were afraid to acknowledge it, because it would change everything. If Yeon's son, Jin, wielded such real power and such a character, and his chosen one turned out to be more than just a girl, then their status, their place in this hierarchy, everything was in question. Finally, Seok, the bravest of them, coughed cautiously. Yee, Ike, Yeon, maybe you're not feeling well? Drink some water. Yeon slowly turned her head toward her. Her gaze was blank, unseeing. Water? She said the word as if she were hearing it for the first time. No, nothing needed. She reached for her purse. Her movements were mechanical, like a robot's. She pulled out an elegant gold cigarette case, even though she had quit smoking 5 years ago. She simply held it in her hands, nervously opening and closing the lid. Click, click, click. The sound cut through the silence. What have I done? She whispered, but without expecting an answer. It was a rhetorical question, addressed to herself, and the answer was obvious. She had ruined the evening. Perhaps she had ruined her relationship with her son, and all because of her own pride. Mina, another friend, took a more practical approach. Maybe he'll cool down? He's your son. He can't just disown you. He was angry. He'll come to his senses. Yeon's eyes snapped up, the last embers of her former rage flaring in them. Did you see him? Did you hear him? He won't come to his senses. He forced me to choose, like some kind of servant. And this... She couldn't finish. Her lips pressed into a thin white line. Even now, even after everything, she found it difficult to pronounce the name Mia or call her fiancé. But she really did know everything. The third friend, Ara, quietly interjected. Numbers, names. She's not just any girl, Yeon. Jin's not a fool. He wouldn't have chosen just anyone. These words, spoken without malice, simply as a statement of fact, finished Yeon off completely. Yes, even her own friends, her circle, saw something in this girl. They saw strength, but she, Yeon, saw only a blonde waitress on whom to take out her anger. The click of the cigarette case grew louder, more abrupt. I need to go, she said abruptly, standing up. Her legs could barely support her. Now. But it's your birthday. The cake hasn't been served yet. Suk weakly tried to object. Yeon looked at her with such an expression that she immediately fell silent. What cake? Yeon hissed. Her voice trembled. Don't you understand? It's over. The evening is over. I'm finished. Without looking at her friends, she grabbed her purse and headed for the exit. She didn't walk with the same regal gait with which she had entered. She walked slightly hunched over, hurriedly, almost running from this place of shame. The friends remained seated at the table, laden with untouched, expensive dishes, silently watching her go. What are we going to do? Mina asked. Suk sighed. She's the one paying. We'll stay here until then. We'll have some wine. And then we'll figure out how to communicate with her now. And, more importantly, how to communicate with her son now. And with that, with Mia, they remained silent, each lost in their own thoughts. The joyful celebration had turned into a cold lesson in power and humiliation. Meanwhile, Jin and Mia emerged from the restaurant onto the night street. The cool air hit them in the face. A long, black, unmarked car was parked in front of the entrance. The driver, a burly man in black, immediately got out and opened Gyeongmyeong's back door. Jin let Mia go first. Only when the door closed and they were left in the quiet of the cabin, separated from the driver by a dark partition, did he turn to her. "I'm sorry," he said first. His voice was completely different now, tired, lacking that chilling metallic edge. "I'm sorry you had to go through that. I didn't think she'd go that far." Mia slipped off the high heels she'd been wearing all evening and tucked her feet under her on the wide leather seat. She looked out the dark window at the city lights drifting past. "Don't apologize," she replied quietly. "I knew what I was getting into, and you knew it. It was a necessary test, for everyone." "Test?" Jin took her hand in his. His fingers were warm and firm. "Yes, for me it's a test of my patience and ability to take a blow. For you, it's a test of your resolve and where your true boundaries lie. And for your mother," Mia paused for a moment. "For her, it was the only way to see the truth, harshly, painfully, but in one evening. Otherwise, she would never have understood. She would have continued to see me as the doll you brought into the house." Jin sighed heavily. He ran his fingers through her blonde hair. "You were magnificent, a stone wall. And that final blow with the facts." I saw her eyes widen. A hint of a smile flickered across Mia's lips, but there was no humor in her eyes. "It wasn't a blow. It was a demonstration, so she and her friends would understand. I'm not an outsider. I'm not entering your world from the outside. I'm already in it, and I know its laws better than they could imagine." She turned to him, her face serious in the dim light of the salon. "Jean, this is only the beginning. We won the battle today, but not the war. She will not accept it. The humiliation she suffered will thirst for revenge. She will look for a weak spot. In you, in me, in our alliance. Let her search." Jin's voice became firm again. "We have no weak points. You proved that today, and I proved to her that my choice is final. The boundaries are set." The car rolled smoothly along the night streets. They were silent, each pondering the evening's events. "What do we do next?" Mia asked. "We'll proceed as planned," Jean replied. "Tomorrow morning, I'll formally introduce you to the key people. Not as a waitress, and not even as my fiancé. As my partner. Your knowledge of the business, which you demonstrated today, will be the best recommendation. And Mom," he paused, "Mom needs time. A lot of time. And we need to be prepared for the possibility that she might try something, but now she'll be more careful." She saw a scorpion. He involuntarily touched the tattoo on his neck with his fingers. Mia nodded. Her thoughts were already racing ahead. To tomorrow's meetings, to analyzing new data, to strengthening their position. This evening had been a difficult spectacle, but it had played its part. Now the real work began. "Please take me to the office, not home," she asked. "I have some reports there, and I want to prepare materials for tomorrow's meetings." Jin looked at her with boundless pride and tenderness. She wasn't just beautiful and intelligent, she had a will of steel, just like his. "As you say." He leaned over and gently kissed her forehead. "But only for a couple of hours. Then rest. Tomorrow is the big day." He ordered the driver to change the route. The car turned toward the business district, where their shared office, the true command center of their growing empire, was located on the upper floors of a skyscraper. Meanwhile, in the restaurant, the manager quietly issued orders. "Table number 1. Bill the full price list, and add the cost of the bottle of Cabernet Riesling they ordered. And," he lowered his voice, "prepare an incident report for Mr. Jin. A detailed one, from every employee, from everyone who saw and heard what. It should be on my desk by morning." He understood that he had witnessed not a family quarrel, but a change of eras, and he wanted to be on the right side of history, Jin's side, and, as it now became clear, Mia's side. That same Mia, who worked quietly as a waitress for a month, memorizing every detail, every person, every weakness, and who today made her first, but very high-profile move. The car stopped silently at the skyscraper's service entrance. The regular front doors had long been closed. The driver got out, quickly glanced at the deserted street, and opened the door. Jin got out first, offering Mia his arm. They entered the building through a discreet steel door, which immediately closed behind them, muffling the street noise. Inside, a security guard at the control panel met them. Upon seeing Jean, he merely nodded briefly and pressed a button. The elevator hummed. They entered the dark, wood-paneled cabin. Jean swiped his keycard, and the elevator carried them smoothly upward, passing dozens of floors. No buttons, no stops. The elevator was silent. Mia leaned against the wall, closing her eyes. The adrenaline that had kept her going all evening was beginning to fade, and fatigue was creeping in. She felt Jean's gaze on her. "Are you sure you don't just want to go home? Rest?" he asked, his voice muffled in the small cabin. Mia opened her eyes and shook her head. "No. Better to work. If I stop now, all the impressions, all the details will start to blur. I need to capture them, while they're fresh. And also," she looked at him, "I need to make a list." "A list?" "A list of people. Those who behaved with dignity in the room today. Those who didn't laugh. Those who tried to do their job despite the pressure. And those, on the contrary, who happily agreed with your mother. This is important personnel data, Jean." He looked at her with undisguised admiration. Even now, after such an emotional upheaval, her mind was working on strategy, on the future. The elevator came to a gentle stop. The doors slid open, revealing a spacious, nearly empty hallway on the top floor. The floor was covered in dark, polished stone. Enormous panoramic windows offered a view of the city at night, sparkling with millions of lights. A stern, luxurious silence reigned here. They walked through the hall to a heavy wooden door. Jin swiped the keycard again. The door slid open silently. This wasn't just an office. It was an entire loft apartment, converted for work. One wall was completely taken up by built-in screens, now dark. In the center stood a huge black wood desk, littered with papers, tablets, and laptops. At the other end of the room was a sitting area with sofas and a kitchenette. Everything was minimalist: black, white, steel, and glass. Mia entered. She kicked off her shoes and walked barefoot to her workstation. A second, slightly smaller desk perpendicular to the main one. It was perfectly tidy: stacks of documents, 2 monitors, and a schedule for tomorrow. She sat down and turned on the computer. The screen illuminated her tired but focused face. Jean took off his jacket, hung it over the back of the chair, and walked over to the kitchenette. "Tea? Coffee? Tea. Green." "Nothing," Mia replied, without looking up from the screen. Her fingers were already running across the keyboard, jotting down the first notes. Jin silently prepared 2 teas in simple black mugs. He approached and placed one next to her hand. She nodded automatically in thanks, continuing to type. He sat down in his chair across from her. He didn't turn on his computer. He just watched her. He watched her work. The way her eyebrows furrowed slightly when she recalled a detail. The way she sometimes paused, staring at one spot, and then began typing rapidly again. "Do you know what was the scariest thing for me today?" he asked quietly. Mia looked up from the screen for a second, her gaze fixed on him. "What?" Not her words, not her behavior, but the moment when you asked her if she often judged people without knowing their history. In that moment, I was afraid. Not for you, for her, because I realized you saw right through her. You saw through all her shallowness. And that's your most dangerous gift, Mia. You see the essence of people. And when people realize they're being seen through, they either begin to fear them or hate them. Mia leaned back in her chair, picking up a stunned, hot mug. "She'll be both," she concluded. "First, hatred, then fear, and then, perhaps, if she's smart, cautious acceptance. But that will take years." She took a sip of tea. "Weren't you scared? When you showed her the scorpion? You usually hide it." Jin shrugged. "It was necessary. She lives in illusions. The illusion that I'm still the boy she can command. The illusion that our business is just a big, beautiful toy. I needed to destroy those illusions, once and for all, to prevent more serious clashes in the future. Better a small explosion now than a war later." He walked to the window, looking out at the city lights. "Tomorrow won't be easy. News will spread fast. Everyone will be watching you with double attention, looking for flaws." A soft sound came from behind. Mia had risen from the table. She walked over to him and stood next to him, also looking out the night window. "Let them search. You and I have no flaws that could be used against us. We only have strengths, and tomorrow will prove it." She rested her head on his shoulder. It was a rare gesture of weariness and complete trust. "Now let's get to work. We only have a few hours until dawn."